We are talking about one of the highest paid actresses in the world, saying she's not getting paid enough.
It's the lawsuit heard around the entertainment world. Scarlett Johansson's legal and PR battle with Disney over her Black Widow earnings is unusually public and hostile for a relationship between an actor and a studio who've done 9 movies together.
I've had an incredible decade working with my Marvel family.
The star claims Disney breached her contract by releasing Black Widow on Disney Plus at the same time as its theatrical run, thereby depriving her of, she claims, up to $50 million in bonuses tied to box office milestones. Disney's reply to the suit was personal and kind of vicious. They wrote, "The lawsuit is especially sad and distressing in its callous disregard for the horrific and prolonged global effects of the COVID-19 pandemic." For all of us watching and reading about this at home, it may feel hard to root for either party in this fight. Does ScarJo need another $50 million? Of course not, and Disney's statement made sure we all knew she's already been paid $20 million. But that figure or her overall wealth aren't really relevant if Disney committed to more in the contract.
What we have here is essentially a pandemic-created labor dispute.
The corporation's portrait of her as a callous woman also seems tailored to incite misogyny, as a distraction from the apparent hypocrisy of suggesting she needn't get paid during a pandemic, even though their stock price is on a healthy up and up. The emotional intensity surrounding this lawsuit signals a bigger power struggle that's gearing up between stars and studios, as both anxiously eye a future where blockbusters increasingly live on streaming platforms. If you're new here, be sure to subscribe and click the bell to get notified about all our new videos. To some, there's also hypocrisy on Johansson's side. Framing suing Disney as a girl power move is questionable given the actor's history of choices that are tone deaf, if not indifferent, to the well-being of other women or minorities. Johansson has been active in movements like Time's Up and criticized some men, but she's also defended Woody Allen and said she would work with him anytime, despite the credible allegations that he abused Dylan Farrow.
I love Woody, I believe him, and I would work with him anytime.
She also drew criticism for playing the lead, originally Japanese character in 2017's whitewashed Ghost in the Shell, and initially accepting a role playing a trans man in 2018's Rub and Tug.
She said that any criticism should be directed to the representatives of Felicity Huffman, Jared Leto, and Jeffrey Tambor.
On the other hand, all this is exactly what Disney wants us to be thinking about. Framing this as the latest in her series of unrelatable controversies is part of the company's calculated strategy to make her actions sound frivolous and greedy. Meanwhile, in addition to Johansson's history of cringy comments, her gender undoubtedly shapes the way that Disney feels they can come after her. Revealing the $20 million figure to the public was an attempt to, as her agent Brian Lord puts it, weaponize her success as an artist and businesswoman. It is hard to imagine them doing this to a male star, even though some of them have earned much more for Marvel movies, with Robert Downey Jr. reportedly earning $75 million from Avengers Endgame. Disney's language accusing callous ScarJo of not caring about the suffering caused by the pandemic is emotionally loaded, playing into social assumptions that it's unnatural for a woman specifically to be uncaring. Arguing that Johansson shouldn't profit during a pandemic is not very compelling when you look at how Disney's fortunes rose over 2020 and 2021, its stock price rising above its pre-pandemic level, and Disney Plus subscriptions going from 26.5 million subscribers at the end of March 2020 to 103.6 million subscribers at the end of April 2021. Fans have already called out this rhetoric as totally hypocritical from a company that's still operating its theme parks with few restrictions in the midst of an ongoing pandemic.
Taking to social media, I love you, Disney, but reopening Walt Disney World at this time is a big mistake. Hashtag profits before people.
According to feminist groups Women in Film, Reframe, and Time's Up, Disney's statement attempts to characterize Johansson as insensitive or selfish for defending her contractual business rights. This gendered character attack has no place in a business dispute and contributes to an environment in which women and girls are perceived as less able than men to protect their own interests without facing ad hominem criticism. Johansson tops many publications' lists of highest paid actresses for multiple years, but the key word is actress. In 2019, she still took home over $30 million less than the highest paid actor that year, Dwayne Johnson, and at least 2 other MCU actors earned more. Meanwhile, though misogyny is one of their tactics, Disney's motives for hitting back at Johansson, and why this matters so much to them, are not really about her being a woman, but more about the emerging struggle over how movie stars fit into and earn in a streaming-centric future. Johansson's lawsuit argues that the streaming release of Black Widow earned value for Disney+, which isn't quantified in the movie's box office figures. Quote, "Why would Disney forego hundreds of millions of dollars in box office receipts by releasing the picture in theaters at a time when it knew the theatrical market was weak? Disney saw the opportunity to promote its flagship subscription service using the picture and Ms. Johansson, thereby attracting new paying monthly subscribers, retaining existing ones, and establishing Disney+ as a must-have service in an increasingly competitive marketplace. But the contracts of today's movie stars are built around box office returns. This is where this lawsuit becomes so important to Disney. Its outcome sets a precedent for how other actors will negotiate their contractual rights as more and more big releases are created for streaming platforms.
This is probably the tip of the iceberg, not just for the Walt Disney Company, but for every single major Hollywood studio.
It's rumored that other actors like Emma Stone and Emily Blunt are considering similar lawsuits for their roles in Cruella and Jungle Cruise, respectively. And Blunt and John Krasinski are reported to have sought compensation from Paramount for shortening the theatrical window for A Quiet Place 2. Complicating this picture is that, unlike Warner Brothers, which released its 2021 movies for free with an HBO Max subscription and had to offer extra payments to some actors as a result, Disney Plus did charge an on-demand fee for Black Widow, a fact that entertainment attorney John Sloss told the LA Times weakens Johansson's case, since those sales were likely factored into the formula for her compensation. As the whole media landscape shifts, the leverage of the movie star is declining. Franchises and earnings today are driven by intellectual property more than star power. This trend can be overstated. After all, every Marvel movie is packed with stars who come with hefty price tags, yet a number of those names were created or launched into a much higher stratosphere of stardom by MCU movies. Since her Marvel work is now done, Johansson is in a unique position to bring this lawsuit, while Black Widow is also the first Marvel movie to come out since the pandemic began. But that brings us to the problem with Black Widow.
And she is potentially a very expensive sexual harassment lawsuit if you keep ogling her like that.
This whole mess is a strangely fitting end to the trajectory of Black Widow, a character who was created and defined by men and sometimes let down by the MCU. As the only leading female character in the MCU's early movies, she was introduced in Iron Man 2 as a pretty objectified version of the sexy spy archetype. The actor later reflected, the character is so sexualized.
Did you model in Tokyo? Because she modeled in Tokyo.
She is really talked about like she's a piece of something, like a possession or a thing, like a piece of ass, really.
I want one.
No.
The franchise struggled with her character in notorious missteps like the highly sexualized violence in the interrogation scene in Avengers, having her call herself a monster because she had been sterilized.
You still think you're the only monster on the team?
And generally making her feel like an unrealistically sexy cool girl type.
Look, I really don't want to hurt you.
I wouldn't stress about it.
Oh, and here are just a few of the really sexist questions Johansson got asked in countless press junkets.
How come you get like the really interesting existential question and I get the rabbit food question?
What would be the fashion elements Avengers Infinity War uses in the movies?
The fashion element?
Yes, for the
I got the fashion question?
Were you able to wear undergarments?
You're the fifth person that's asked me that.
Because
what is going on?
Despite some progress in her character's evolution over her 9 films, Natasha's story still ultimately ended with her dying for a male character and happy to do so because he had a family, while, as we know, she couldn't have kids.
Tell my family I love them.
You tell him yourself.
When Black Widow did at last get her standalone movie, it came with the limitations of being the prequel for a dead character, making its impact on the overall MCU feel a little slight. Interestingly, the Black Widow movie attempts to be a take on feminist empowerment.
It would have been a missed opportunity if this film didn't reflect, what's going on in the zeitgeist. That is female empowerment.
The Washington Post's Alyssa Rosenberg writes that Black Widow is about how men molded Natasha and her sister, Yelena Belova, into avatars of hyperfemininity employed to hypermasculine ends, a male-defined vision of female superheroism.
Why do you always do that thing?
Do what?
The thing you do when you're fighting.
This thing that you do when you whip your hair.
Rosenberg points out that there's an irony to this franchise raising questions about what it means for men to dictate what female strength and empowerment look like, because Black Widow is the invention of 3 men, and even if the movie's directed by a woman, Kate Shortland, the MCU is headed by Kevin Feige. She also points out the long history of men defining female strength on screen, and the fact that even Sheryl Sandberg's lean-in feminism and Sophia Amoruso's girl boss version are still based largely on women partaking in a male idea of success.
And if 2 years ago, you didn't take a promotion and some guy next to you did, you're gonna be bored, because you should have kept your foot on the gas pedal.
Arguably, this is the problem with Johansson's own feminism. It's a self-interested, lean-in girl boss type, defined by her trying to compete for a spot in a male-defined world. Still, we're all shaped and limited by our experiences and the environments we came up in, and Black Widow was that lone female character carrying the pressure of transitioning the MCU toward a more female future.
I'm always picking up after you, boys.
But the truth of this story is that it's actually not about ScarJo. Disney's tactics here echo larger trends to make the human presence and creator's agency ever less important to movie making. As Martin Scorsese inspired debates around the evils of content reveal, when you remove the feeling that the artist matters to the art, everything risks becoming one long advertisement for the brand.
These films now, I think, are more like theme rides, and it's a different experience for an audience.
This is The Take on your favorite movies, shows, and culture.
Thank you so much for watching and for supporting us.
Please subscribe and never miss a take.